Hello Team FD and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we take a look at the highs and lows from the game week just past in the Premier League. Joining me today, it's Joseph Tomlinson and Will Brazier. Starting with you, Will, how was your weekend, mate?
It was okay, thank you, Chris. I turned 30, so I'm trying to focus on Tom Brady turning 42 and still really, burgeoning on with his career.
Yes, good stuff. And what an early birthday present. Sam Cosgrove from Aberdeen for £2 million. You've been absolutely fleeced there, by the by. Joe, how are you, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Not the best weekend sporting-wise. Lots of disappointments around, to be totally honest with you. Lots of disappointments. England were an absolute disgrace in the rugby. Chiefs scraped the result in the Premiership. United, obviously, basically lost. And then I wasted my time staying up to watch Tom Brady walk to another Super Bowl, mate. So I'm pretty tired, but nevertheless, I don't want to bring the tempo of the show down. So I'm up for this. Let's do it.
All right. I love that. Saved it at the last minute. Let's start with the talking point, as ever. And it is Manchester City, inevitably, after that demolition of Liverpool last night. And this suggestion comes in from the Journeyman 17. I mean, it was a fairly obvious one, but thank you for sending your suggestions in. And yeah, Man City now 10 points clear with a game in hand on Liverpool. And it's not a scoreline we've really become accustomed to in this fixture. Often cagey affairs, aren't they? Sometimes a little bit underwhelming, even. In fact, it was only the second time in 25 ties between these two clubs where the away side has won. So it was somewhat of an Easter egg of a result. But instead of starting the show by beating up on Liverpool, let's put some respect on Phil Foden's name. Because he was magnificent, wasn't he? Joe, talk to me about his performance. What impressed you about the young man's starring role?
I mean, what doesn't impress you about Phil Foden? It's honestly ridiculous. Now, I put out a tweet yesterday that was like, Phil Foden, he could be a potential future Ballon d'Or winner, at least in that category. People were saying, it's like typical English bias. Players have one good game and suddenly we're chucking them in the hat for Ballon d'Ors in the future. And I thought to myself, but the thing is, it's not just one good game for Phil Foden, is it? It's like a prolonged period of excellence now for a 20-year-old in perhaps one of the most elite teams the Premier League's ever seen, under one of the most demanding coaches the game's ever seen. And yesterday was like the best I've seen Phil Foden, I think, or at least up there. He's having his most productive season comfortably. That's 10 goals for City in all competitions this year, which is quite an achievement to get to 10 at 20 years old, playing in that sort of attacking mid-come winger role at City without a striker as well. And I thought Pep was really interesting after the game when he was chatting about how Phil was excellent on the ball, which he obviously is. He's probably the most balanced dribbler of a ball at his age in that position that I've seen for quite some time, maybe since Jack Wilshere, who had a similar sort of tendency to be able to bring the ball under control and shift it very quickly before the bloke even got set. So incredibly impressive. But yeah, Pep was talking about how he hasn't quite learnt the attacking midfield role yet, doesn't know what position he needs to take up, and is better probably wide, where he's allowed a little bit more freedom. And that actually genuinely excited me from like an England standpoint, because I was thinking to myself, think how good he is going to be when he's like 25. He's already exceptional on the ball. His balance, his dribbling, his touch, his ability to turn sort of in tiny little bits of space is just incredible. Fantastic finish yesterday for the goal. If Alisson maybe a bit squeaky with his handling. Nevertheless, it's just a sensational performance from a sensational 20-year-old. And I love him. I love him. It's just such a shame he plays for Man City, man. It genuinely is.
I mean, you touched upon the goal return there. The only player younger than him in double digits in Europe's top 5 this season, Erling Braut Haaland. So he's in very, very good company right now, isn't he, in front of goal? Will, we might as well ask you this question. We debated it on Sunday Vibes, and I might be throwing you under the bus here because you've not prepared for it, but rank Grealish, Foden, Mount and Maddison 1 to 4, please.
Good God almighty. Foden number 1, Grealish number 2.
Birmingham bias there. Birmingham bias sneaking through the gap.
You can't put Grealish at number 1. Birmingham loyalties.
Foden number 1, Grealish number 2. Who were the other two? Maddison.
Mount and Maddison.
I'll go Maddison, Mount at the bottom.
Ooh, an interesting combination. I don't think any of us went for that combination on Sunday Vibes. Very briefly explain the rationale behind that.
Well, I can't put Jack Grealish at the top because I'm a Birmingham City fan.
Simple.
But Phil, I think he's called him Bill Foden. That might be his brother. And we might have another generational talent on our hand. No, Phil's doing it at Man City, like Joe said, and obviously if you can cut the mustard, Champions League, Man City title, well, probably title winners now, aren't they? So
definitely.
I think to put Jack at the top of the list, he'd have to do it in a traditional top 6 club in Europe, in Champions League, and same for the others. Well, apart from Mason Mount, but just feel like he's not as consistent as the others.
Right, there we have it. Let us know your opinion in the comments below, guys. I will be replying to them in the first hour, so I want to know your 1 to 4.
I think that's fair, isn't it? What were the other 4s?
I went Jack Grealish, Phil Foden, Mount, Maddison bottom. But we were kind of doing it more just on this season's output, and I just feel like Mount's had a better season than Maddison so far this year.
Okay.
Mine deviated slightly. Grealish, Foden, Maddison, Mount. Maybe a bit of Leicester bias coming to the fore there. Mount has been really good under another coach. So he's not just Lampard's favourite. He's just been very consistent, whoever he's played for, hasn't he? Let's go back to Phil Foden then. Because, like you've all pointed out, outstanding in this game. He now has a non-penalty expected goal and assist rate of 0.5 per 90 across the whole season. So contributing to a goal every other game. That just goes back to the form Joe was talking about, this extended run of excellence. I mean, Man City's midfielders are doing it in a big way in the absence of Sergio Aguero this term, aren't they? But I want to talk about his partner as well. Raheem Sterling, incredible in this game. Could have been man of the match had Phil Foden not put in that sort of virtuoso performance. Completed 5 dribbles, which was match high. And that front line of Manchester City is actually very energised. The work rate was there. 6 tackles between them, 5 more than Liverpool's. And the hunger there was pretty visible, wasn't it? But yeah, Foden and Raheem Sterling, definitely the difference makers in this game. I mean, there was one other difference maker, and let's touch upon him very briefly. The Alisson meltdown. Now, the Brazilian keeper clearly dropped a straight 1 out of 10 in this game, gifting Man City 2 goals after a very, very tight 45 minutes. It's got to be said. The first 45 was the half I was expecting from these two sides. Second half, not so much. But Alisson, Golden Gloves recipient in 18-19, Premier League champion 19-20, had only lost 6 Premier League games before this in 85 appearances. So probably deserves a bit of a break. But Joe, apart from Alisson's blunders, did you see any positives in Liverpool's performance last night? I'll give you an example. I thought Curtis Jones was decent.
Yeah, Curtis Jones was decent, but no glaring positives, to be totally honest with you. I thought the first half was actually pretty poor. I thought it was, quality-wise, I was expecting a lot better from Man City in particular. I didn't think that was their best 45 at all. And I think Pep actually probably got into him a little bit at half-time and said this game's there for the taking. Liverpool were fine, but I never felt like they were going to score goals. Even when they got the penalty back, I never felt like they were going to be the team that went and got the second. Whereas City, you always felt had gears to go through. And when they started to go up the gears, I felt like Liverpool just couldn't live with them at all. And it's been a worrying start to 2021. Obviously, no home wins in the Premier League in 2021 for Liverpool. But I just think they've got to accept the title's gone. And they're in a top 4 battle now, and they'll get top 4. It's almost like, okay, let's just accept this season. It's happened. There's not too much they can do about it. Injuries have cucked them so hard. Try and get Kabak playing minutes. Get Fabinho and Hendo back into that midfield roles. And I'm sure they're going to finish fairly comfortably in the top 4. But I wouldn't say, watching that game yesterday, there was any major positives for me. Yeah, maybe Curtis Jones was quite impressive.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Wasn't the biggest fan of taking him and Thiago off in a double change. I thought that was a bit of a weird one. But nevertheless, yeah, City were just comfortably the better side.
Yeah, I was looking for a silver lining for Liverpool fans there. Not very evident when you're only getting 2 shots on target at home. And that leaves the Reds 27 points worse off than this time last campaign. And City just continue to be imperious. They're just growing in confidence, aren't they? And it's pretty ominous for the rest of the league. They've won 14 matches on the bounce in all competitions, equaling Arsenal's record from the 80s. And the Salah's penalty was actually the first goal they'd conceded in 600 minutes. Let's end this first segment with a few words from Klopp, who was obviously disappointed.
How big does the scrap look coming up for Champions League places?
Yeah, that's of course our main target. That is clear. We will try everything. So there's enough games to play to secure them. But we have to win games, and tonight we didn't.
This week's winners then are Aston Villa, and it comes from @Grealish goals, and they beat Arsenal 1-0 at home thanks to an early Ollie Watkins strike, the 25-year-old's 10th in just 21 Premier League appearances. Will, apart from Watkins' strike ratio, what else impressed you about Aston Villa? One of your favourite subjects to talk about?
Well, I think we've mentioned those teams before as well, and you look at the squad depth that Villa have now. I think El Ghazi and Trezeguet were on the bench for this game, and that was their starting sort of wingers for last season. So sort of to move those on and have those on the bench, and even those guys have improved in quality, especially El Ghazi had that sort of green run of form during December. So the clean sheets obviously speak for themselves, and to get one against Arsenal, and we're kicking back into a little bit of form. We don't talk about the Wolves game, but I think they've just got a lot more solidity. Obviously, with the keeper coming in, that's bought that. The back four has only changed slightly with Matty Cash coming in, and Target sort of, I don't know about you guys, but even with the potential shout for left back role in England, and then just everywhere has improved in quality, and the depth's getting stronger. And even like people like Marvellous and Camber, who were sort of written off by many Villa fans, coming back into the team, getting ahead of competing with Douglas Luiz for that. So every position, barring striker, but Wesley's going to come back, and he was fairly impressive with the small amount of run that he had in the team last season. Every position at Aston Villa has got genuine competition, whereas last year it was people like Hotter from Blues, who I can tell you wasn't going to be part of squad rotation. So, I live with a Villa fan. All my mates are Villa fans. So I might just sort of dig a bunker and hide away for the next 10 years.
Yeah, like you just touched upon there, I think the depth is truly impressive, particularly in that midfield area. I mean, they've effectively got rid of Hourihane, who is a very good footballer. He's had a good impact at Swansea, hasn't he? And replaced him with Sanson from Marseille, who can play multiple positions, whether that's central midfield or attacking midfield. So he's now their backup option. I mean, Marseille fans were furious he was even sold. And like you said, Nakamba, 6 tackles in this game in that double pivot with McGinn. Very, very good. Joe, looking at the starting 11s, actually quite, concerning if you're an Arsenal fan. Great if you're a Villa fan. How close in terms of ability these two sides were. It wasn't a given, that Arsenal were going to be the superior side in this fixture.
Yeah, no, I put as much in the Football Daily WhatsApp group. I think that on paper, those two first 11s are so evenly matched. I think Arsenal probably do have the slightly better individual quality, but then, Aston Villa, when you've got Jack Grealish, Ross Barkley, Ollie Watkins, John McGinn going forward, no disrespect to Bertrand Traore, I think he's all right, but those kind of 4 players are genuinely superb. John McGinn, I cannot get enough of him. He's like my in the Premier League. I love to watch John McGinn play. I don't know what it is, but he's everywhere all the time. Ollie Watkins, I think maybe, I'm struggling to think off the top of my head, and you have slightly better Championship knowledge than me, Will, so you might be able to help me out here, but I'm struggling to think of a striker that's come from the Championship to the Premier League and has adapted and scored goals as quickly and easily as Ollie Watkins, because I sometimes think Championship strikers struggle to make that step up, but 10 goals in 20 odd games, I can't off the top of my head think of a Championship striker that's come in first season, first 8 months and done that.
Yeah, it's tricky to think as well. I think to get that goal return as well with the fixture list that they've had as well, just to actually put because he knows well, and it's been patchy sort of goal form. He's been playing well with the link-up sort of play as well, but there's been before this run of goals, he went 6-7 games without a goal, didn't he? And then
now he's got 4 and 5, I think.
So yeah, only ways up for him.
Yeah, he's a big Arsenal fan as well, Ollie Watkins. So that will have. Yeah, I reckon. I don't know whether he'll have enjoyed it or hated it on the weekend, but
former Exeter boy as well.
Yeah, former Exeter boy. But yeah, I think Arsenal, like Will said, they're going to have an up and down season, aren't they? They need to get Kieran Tierney back at the earliest opportunity, because Cedric is filling a hole, But having a right-footed left-back that's not Kieran Tierney level is causing all sorts of problems. And I just think when Kieran Tierney comes back, that extra bit of balance will improve the team so much. I wouldn't be too worried if I was an Arsenal fan. Like they're not going to put together a top 4 run, that's all right. But I think they'll improve pretty immediately as soon as he's back in the side.
Yeah, a lot of responsibility on Kieran Tierney's shoulders, because I slightly disagree. I think Arsenal fans, should be a little bit wary of another slump, let's say, because they had a small resurgence, didn't they? They've now lost 2 on the bounce, and I think they're currently averaging 1.3 points per game. And if they keep going at this rate for the rest of the season, they will finish around 12th, 13th, won't they? Based on last season's points haul, which I know they're going through a transitional period, is still not quite good enough. I mean, I think Palace and Leeds can both leapfrog them if they win tonight's fixture. Monday Night Football, obviously they face one another, so it won't happen with both of them.
Southampton can as well. They can drop to 13th.
Yeah, Southampton have lost 5 on the bounce and can still leapfrog them. So obviously not quite through the woods yet, but getting there, I suppose. And the Wolves fixture wasn't lucky there, wasn't it? Let's move on then to the losers, and it was Southampton, who we just very briefly mentioned there. This comes in from @Saints_fandom, thrown his own team in the bin because they lost to the Magpies 3-2. And Steve Bruce's men finished the game with 9 men on the pitch, didn't they? Just to add insult to injury. St. Maximan, 2 assists. Almiron, 2 goals, which near enough doubled both of their goal involvements for the season, which is a good indication of how sort of lacklustre they've been in the opposition's final third. And Bruce's men now, I mean, we've dicked on them for large parts of the season, and rightly so, because it's been like watching paint dry, but they're now 10 points clear of Fulham. So moving away from that looming sense of relegation. I mean, Will, you called the Graham Jones effect 2 weeks ago, mate. Are you going to attribute this upturn in form to him?
Well, there's lots of people saying that Graham Jones is the puppet master now, isn't it? And that's been the change in the form. But I think the one simple factor is just having St. Maximin back, because he's so direct, he's so creative, and he just adds an extra spark when Newcastle get into that final third, and it bringing people up like Almiron, who has got the quality but not been showing it for the season. So, I mean, when you're playing Southampton, that back line's absolutely disintegrated, hasn't it, in the space of 7 days? So, I think it's maybe little tactical tweaks, but yeah, just having St. Maximin back, who is a player of absolute quality, is going to change things.
Yeah, had a lot of niggling injuries, didn't he? It's good to see him shaking them off. I mean, Newcastle's run coming up is pretty hideous over the next 5 fixtures. Chelsea, Man United, Wolves, West Brom and Villa. So I think we'll probably have a better indication of their survival hopes after that. I mean, if they take, 3 to 6 points from those games, let's say, I think they would have done extremely well. Joe, like we said earlier on in the show, that's now 5 losses on the bounce for Hasenhüttl. They only lost 4 games in total before this horrific run, which obviously saw people sort of put them in the Europa League contenders. Now, expected points has them at 14th. And this is a squad that we've beat up on quite a lot. So do you think that this is a fair reflection of the talent that Hasenhüttl has at his disposal, or should they still be doing better?
I think they should still be doing a little bit better. I mean, what's the date today? 8th of February? 8th of February. They've won 1 Premier League game since the 13th of December. So we're approaching 2 months now of winning 1 Premier League game. I would be pretty concerned if I was a Southampton fan, it has to be said. Just to touch upon the 9-0 as well, like, it's all well and good going down to 10 men in the first minute. Sure, you can use that as a bit of a crutch maybe, but the manner of the demolition job was extremely concerning. I thought the manner of the way Newcastle, who, to be honest with you, don't create an awful lot, do they? We have hammered Steve Bruce this season, but at least with the 4-3-3, kind of found some balance in there. Willock looks quite exciting. But to be conceding 3 in that game as well, I'm starting to get quite concerned that Southampton could have a little bit of a spiral here. Danny Ings, I think, is that 1 goal in 10 games? Maybe no goals in 10 games. He's obviously on an awful run of form. Minamino hit the ground running, so that's quite exciting. But like Will said, the back line What has happened to it? Honestly, I struggle to see how this collapse has happened so quickly, because I really do like Hasenhüttl. I think he has got a mediocre squad playing some quite good football. But 1 win in 2 months is not good enough in the Premier League. Obviously, they've won cup games as well in there, but I would be worried if I was a Southampton fan.
Well, particularly given the numerical advantage as well, right? Like Jeff Hendrick went off on 49 minutes, and if you're not getting points against Newcastle, this Newcastle side in those circumstances, it is a little bit worrying. I mean, Ward-Prowse, another free kick. Will, were you off your seat, mate?
Well,
those long old limbs of yours, were they flailing about?
It was quite a tame reaction for me, actually, just because I did want Southampton to get back into it, but I just cast my mind forward to sort of like a Kieran Trippier-esque experience that we could have this summer if we just bring Ward-Prowse on for sort of set-piece specialities.
So you're behind, taking Ward-Prowse to the Euros just because he is that good at set pieces?
We're just coming off the back of watching the Super Bowl. They have specialist set-piece takers, special teams. Why not bring Ward-Prowse on?
I mean, I think there'd probably be a fair amount of people behind that, because he's doing it with an alarming rate of consistency, isn't it? And like you said, Joe, Danny Ings struggling, but Cole Darlow making a very good save from him.
And I think he hit the post as well. He
hit the post as well, didn't he?
Yeah. It's even with Ings though. You speak about his quality. I think he was through 1-on-1 when it was. I think they were only 1-0 down, and he just took an extra touch, and it just ties into that sort of lack of confidence, lack of goals. And if he's not scoring and he's not firing. It's a little bit of a worry.
Strugs, Phil. I was also interested to see how Bruce and Jones, the puppet master, would work Willock but into that side, because he does have sort of a similar skill set, I guess, to Almiron, in that he's a hard-working forward who can progress the ball nicely with his pace, decent sort of control, dribbling ability. But yeah, that 4-3-1-2 worked nicely, and Newcastle fans deserve some goals, don't they? Let's move on to the numbers game then. We'll start with you, Tomlinson, and your number is 21, and it is from the Manchester United versus Everton game, and I do want your thoughts after this on the general 90.
21. I mean, other than the fact that the 21 is not coming home this season, is that the amount of goals David De Gea has conceded or something like that? No, we've conceded a lot more than that. We've conceded in the 30s, haven't we? So I'm not too sure.
It's something, almost equally as impressive. It's Bruno Fernandes has now scored 21 goals in the Premier League since his debut, and only Mohamed Salah has scored more on 22.
Not
now,
bad.
for an attacking midfielder, that is absolutely outrageous. He's also scored 4 goals against Everton, so he's the scourge of the blue side of the Mersey. I didn't watch this game, so can you give me and the guys at home, a general feel for it?
Oh my God, is my general feel of it. Just the most frustrating 90 minutes of football. It's one of those games where you just are so wound up after it, absolutely raging. Because at least for the first 45, United were excellent, like really, really in control of the game. Obviously, Bruno, worldy, but Edinson Cavani, who always also scores against Everton. I think that's 3 in his last 3 against Everton since he arrived. He was firing. United were just playing really, really good football, totally in control of the game. Second half, David De Gea has an absolute stinker. Tapping for the Doucouré. Then about a minute later, James Rodriguez scores. So it's like 5 minutes of total head loss, and you can kind of forgive it. These things do happen sometimes. Get back in front. Good Scott McTominay header. Still in control of the game. And then, the free kick from Tuanzebe, don't give it away in the 95th minute. One of the defenders head the ball, because that back line is now becoming it's like a comedy sketch back there. De Gea, clatter your man. Take everything off of Calvert-Lewin. Take his head off. But God, to concede 96th minute was an absolute gut punch. It really was. It's just so frustrating. But the defense at the end of the day, like I said it on Twitter. United have got the best attack in the league at the moment. I think they've scored the most goals. And they are extremely dangerous. They can carve you open in a single moment. But at the back, 11th best defence in the league. And it genuinely is a mid-table backline. It's so hit and miss. It concedes so many stupid goals. And De Gea now has the second worst save percentage in the Premier League, which is becoming an increasing concern. So United are fine. The game was actually pretty positive if you looked at the overall 90 minutes, but the result was a gut punch, mate. Absolute gut punch.
Fair play. I don't have anything to add to that, to be perfectly honest. I think that's you've been quite moderate there. Will, let's move on then to your numbers game. Chance here to get another win over Joe in this small sub-narrative. 36%, and it's from the Tottenham West Brom game.
Is that the amount of possession that Tottenham had?
I'll give you a second guess, because that was rash. You went straight off the bat with your gut, which I respect to a degree. But 36%, nothing to do with possession.
I reckon I know this one.
Go on, Thomas, and you have a crack.
Is it Harry Kane's? How many goals Harry Kane has scored comparatively to Tottenham's overall goals or something this season?
I will give you that. It's 36%, but it's Harry Kane and Son. They both scored 36% of Tottenham's goals, and it was practically Samba football, compared to what Tottenham have dished up in the last two fixtures. 13 shots against West Brom, and Harry Kane and Son securing the points. That I suppose kind of puts that awful loss in the rearview mirror. But yeah, I mean, I was going to ask some questions about Tottenham West Brom, but you know what? I can't be bothered. Let's move on to the moment of the weekend. Saints fandom sent this in. Soucek red, another shocker from Mike Dean, who has strong opinions on this. It was woeful.
Do you know what the most shocking thing I think of this entire incident was how passionate and almost rattled Jamie Redknapp was. And if Jamie Redknapp sort of getting angry and feisty, I've met him, and I'm sure you guys have as well. Lovely, lovely bloke, but he was absolutely furious. So I think for me that was one of the most shocking incidents of the weekend.
Joe?
I cannot believe the Soucek red card. It's probably one of the worst we've seen this season, because the fact that I cannot understand how the ref can go with VAR. Who was in VAR? I can't remember. How can Mike Dean possibly go to the monitor, watch that incident, and say it's deliberate? Clearly trying to free his elbow. Like, it's the most common sense thing I've ever seen. It's absolutely ridiculous. The standard of officiating in the Premier League is at an all-time low. There needs to be an urgent review of all referees, because at the moment we're seeing a shocker every single game, and a proper shocker at that. It's in a turgid situation. I don't know if they've all lost confidence, what's happening, but even the most common sense, obvious decisions, they're overthinking and getting wrong now. It's really, really starting to get on my nerves.
Michael Oliver better get on the treadmill, because he's doing every game at this rate. He's going to have to do multiple games in one day, as is Kevin Friend. Shout out Kevin Friend, he's from Leicester. Ellie Mandem. Right. Yeah, the next suggestion comes from Rags07. He's put somehow Kane returns. I mean, he's probably come back 2 to 3 weeks, before everyone assumed Will.
I mean, that's an absolute disgrace to all fantasy football managers out there in the land.
Proper cocktease.
If you're going to do something, do it right and do it with authority. Jose Mourinho's morals are absolutely off the compass. Because I bought Vardy and Vardy didn't start, and Kane scored, and I will never be able to look at him in the eyes during a press conference, during a post-match interview, because that man is a slug.
Ambitious from you putting Kane. No, sorry. Who did you put in? Vardy. Vardy in for Kane. Two people that were highly in doubt. I'm questioning.
And while we're here as well, the Fantasy Football app is a disgrace as well, because normally it's up to date with your percentages of injury, and it was all over the place this weekend, and I look like an absolute fool.
Yeah, I'm questioning your game management there as well.
Yeah, Vardy, mate, you must have known Vardy was going to struggle.
Don't pick on me.
I'll sub Harry Kane in off for someone that's just had hernia surgery 2 weeks ago. Last one, Iceman 1203. Ollie subbing to Anzabion to effectively waste time, who ends up giving the free kick away for Calvert-Lewin's equaliser. I think you've already touched upon that, Joe.
I mean, that was the right sub, though. That was the right sub. Not to just interject there. Sorry.
No, go on.
But I think he brought him on for maybe Mason Greenwood when we're 3-2 up. in the 90th minute, like to get an extra defender on the pitch. It was the right sub. It was just the wrong decision from Tuanzebe to lunge into a foul.
Yeah, fair. Go on then. Pick, Joe, you pick yours out of those three, moment of the weekend, then Will, you do the same.
For sure, I'm going to go for the Soucek red card because it was absolutely shambolic.
Well,
I think I'll have to go for the same. Sorry to be a bit boring. It's just, I think it's the sort of final straw of refereeing, and maybe we should put our cards in the mix to have a go at it.
no, it's going to take an awful lot to beat out Mike Dean's preposterous red card, wasn't it? But there we have it. He stole the show once more, Mike Dean. And that is another episode of Winners and Losers. Like I said, I will be in the comments of the first hour, so make sure you're hitting us up with all your thoughts on this show in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already, and we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for joining me, gentlemen. Goodbye.